The cinematic sound of a ticking clock echoes faintly. A low, deliberate voice begins. I'm Daniel Williams. And those were the exact words my son's new bride said to my face. Amanda Johnson, 26, polished to perfection, fresh from her secret Vegas wedding, stood in my modest living room, flashing a 3-carat diamond that caught the afternoon light like a warning flare. Her heels clicked across my worn hardwood floors with the kind of confidence only entitlement can buy. Tyler doesn't need some broke teacher dragging down our new life, she said, not even looking at me, just admiring her manicure as if my existence was a minor inconvenience in her otherwise perfect day. She had no idea. She had no idea that the man standing before her, the quiet, middle-aged teacher with a coffee mug and a 2012 Honda Civic parked outside, was about to teach her the most expensive lesson of her life. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button, because this story isn't just about money. It's about what happens when someone mistakes humility for weakness and underestimates the quiet guy in the corner. Let me paint you a picture of how Amanda saw me from the start. 56 years old, 3-bedroom townhouse I bought in 2008 for $185,000, a teacher at Roosevelt High School. My monthly take-home after taxes, $2,847. My car, a beat-up Civic with nearly 200,000 miles. To her, I was invisible, unimpressive, a man who'd settled. She never cared to ask why. The first time I realized who she really was came during Christmas dinner at her parents' Westchester estate. While I was helping clear dishes, I overheard her whispering to her college roommate on the phone. Tyler's dad is just this broke teacher who lives in some tiny house. I mean, the man makes less in a year than I spend on handbags. She wasn't wrong about the math. Her handbag collection probably did cost more than my annual salary. The second sign came 3 months before their wedding. Amanda started organizing what she called family meetings. These meetings were held at overpriced restaurants, the kind of places where water costs $15 and the check comes in a leather folder. When Tyler suggested including me, she'd wave her hand dismissively. Your father wouldn't be comfortable at places like this, she'd say. Besides, we're discussing real financial planning. Real financial planning. As if I'd spent my life counting quarters instead of compounding returns. Because here's what Amanda didn't know. 20 years earlier, in 2004, I wasn't a teacher. I was an investment banker at Goldman Sachs, making $500,000 a year, corner office, 6-figure bonuses, Manhattan skyline view. I had it all. Until one Tuesday morning, my wife packed her bags, left a note, and walked out. She couldn't handle family responsibilities. I had 48 hours to decide. Hire a full-time nanny and keep my high-paying career, or give it all up to raise my 8-year-old son myself. I chose Tyler. I traded skyscrapers for classrooms, trading floors for blackboards, high finance for high school history. I became Mr. Williams, the teacher. But there's something Amanda never understood about men like me, men who sacrifice quietly. We don't stop being strategists just because we stop wearing suits. With the modest savings I had after the divorce, I started investing again, slowly, patiently. Apple stock in 2004, when everyone thought the iPod was a fad. Google during their IPO. Tesla in 2010, when analysts laughed at the toy car company. I lived on my teaching salary, and I never touched those investments. For 20 years, I let time work its magic. Amanda saw my 20-year-old suits and thought I couldn't afford better. She saw my Timex watch and assumed it was because I couldn't buy a Rolex. She saw me clipping coupons at the grocery store and thought I was broke. She saw everything and understood nothing. The breaking point came at their engagement party. Amanda stood at the podium of her parents' country club, champagne glass in hand, and told 200 guests how excited she was to help Tyler rise above his circumstances. She said she was grateful he wouldn't repeat his father's pattern of settling for less. Laughter. Applause, clinking glasses. I just sat there, quietly cutting my prime rib into neat, perfect pieces, one after another, as my son smiled nervously beside her. Dad, he said afterward, placing a hand on my shoulder, you know she doesn't mean anything by it, right? She just wants what's best for us. That's when I knew. If I stayed silent, I wouldn't just lose my son's respect. I'd lose him. Not in some dramatic explosion of conflict, but in a slow, polite suffocation. A year later, he'd call less. 2 years later, holidays would get too busy. Eventually, I'd become the story he told to excuse the distance. My dad tried his best. So when Amanda tried to erase me from their lives, when she suggested I'd be more comfortable in an assisted living facility at 56, I realized it was time to remind her that appearances can be deceiving. Because while she was building an image, I'd been building legacy. And that legacy was worth $31.2 million. But she wouldn't learn that from a lecture. No, Amanda needed to learn the hard way. So I waited, I watched, I planned. The opportunity came wrapped in a ribbon called the prenup. When Amanda's lawyer handed Tyler the papers, she said it was just a formality. But there was one clause I insisted on, a single line buried deep in the legal jargon, one she didn't bother to read. It stated that if either spouse showed persistent contempt for family sacrifice or parental devotion, they would forfeit their rights to marital assets. Amanda had laughed when she signed it. Who would ever be against family devotion? That's like being against puppies. She had no idea that her arrogance had just signed her own downfall. Then there was Margaret. Every month for the past year, I'd been meeting my financial advisor, Margaret Hayes, at a Starbucks near the school. To Amanda, it looked like I was having coffee with a lonely divorcee. Maybe some woman desperate enough to date a broke teacher. What she didn't know was that Margaret managed multi-million-dollar portfolios for Fortune 500 executives. When Amanda sneered at her BMW and designer suits, she thought she was spotting wealth. What she didn't realize was that the woman across from me was managing mine. And then came the wedding venue walkthrough. The Riverside Manor, $12,000 just for the rental. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, manicured gardens, everything about it screamed money. Amanda stood there, glowing in a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my annual take-home. "Isn't it perfect, Dad?" Tyler asked. Before I could respond, Amanda turned, her smile sharp as glass. "Daniel, I'm glad you could make it, though we've made some adjustments to the ceremony." "What kind of adjustments?" "We've reserved the front 2 rows for immediate family. That means my parents, my siblings, and Tyler's colleagues." "And where does that leave me?" "3rd row, center seat, perfect view." Tyler frowned. "Amanda, he's my father." She cut him off with a sweet smile. "It's about the photos, sweetheart. The wedding party needs to look cohesive." "Cohesive how?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, then said it. "Well, let's be honest about economics. Your outfit from Men's Warehouse won't photograph well next to my family's attire." The silence hit like thunder. I just looked at her. "Anything else?" "Actually, yes. We've decided on a no-gift policy. Monetary contributions only. It's more practical for couples at our level." "Our level," I repeated. Amanda folded her arms. "I don't mean to be unkind, but a teacher's idea of an appropriate gift might not align with our registry." Tyler opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. $34,836, I said. She blinked. "What?" "My salary, after taxes. You've clearly done your research. Tell me, what else did you find?" She straightened, ready to fight. "I know you couldn't keep your wife. I know you never owned a decent car. I know you live in a townhouse smaller than my parents' guest cottage. You gave up any chance at real success to play house with your son, and now you want to drag him down to your level." Tyler's face went pale. I took a step closer. "And how exactly am I dragging him down?" "By filling his head with small-town values," she snapped. "When he could be networking with people who matter." "People who matter." It was almost poetic, I smiled. "And what do you think I built, Amanda? A modest life teaching other people's children for poverty wages. That's not success, Daniel. That's survival." She had no idea that survival was the foundation of every empire. "Limited," she said again, crossing her arms. "I'd call it focused." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Don't give me some Hallmark speech about money not buying happiness." "Never," I smiled. "I wouldn't dream of it. Money absolutely buys things, security, freedom, opportunity. The question is, do you understand what real money looks like?" Her confidence flickered, and for the first time she looked unsure. That evening, Tyler called me. "Dad, what did you mean about real money? Amanda's been asking all night." I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by 2 decades of investment statements, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, my quiet empire built from discipline and patience. "I just meant," I said slowly, "that people define wealth differently. Some people spend it, others build it." "Dad, are you saying," I smiled, I'm saying Amanda's about to learn what assumptions cost. Because while she was preparing for her picture-perfect wedding, I was preparing something else entirely. Something that would remind her and my son that sometimes the richest man in the room is the one you never noticed. And as the wedding day approached and the final signatures were filed, one small overlooked clause was about to turn a golden ceremony into $1 million revelation, one that Amanda Johnson would never forget. The music fades to a low, suspenseful hum. Because the thing about underestimating someone like me is that you never see the lesson coming until it costs you everything. Soft beat. And trust me, Amanda's lesson, it was only just beginning. Imagine sitting in a mahogany-paneled law office, the kind where every word echoes like it costs $1,000 to speak. On one side of the table sits a woman who thought she had it all figured out. Designer clothes, family money, a new husband, and a plan to rise even higher. On the other side, the quiet man she once dismissed as a failure. A broke teacher, she called him, who's now calmly dismantling her illusion with nothing more than the truth. I'm Daniel Williams, and this is the moment Amanda Johnson realized she'd just played herself out of $31 million. But let's rewind 3 days to the night everything changed. The Educators' Excellence Awards, a room full of teachers, donors, and business leaders. To most people, it was just another charity event. To Amanda, it was supposed to be a polite evening she could endure for appearances, another box checked on her good daughter-in-law resume. What she didn't know was that this would become the night her entire perception of power, wealth, and success came crashing down. She'd spent months belittling my modest townhouse, my 2012 Civic, my life as a teacher. She laughed at my thrift store suits and coupon habits, not knowing each coupon clipped was part of a discipline that built a fortune she couldn't begin to comprehend. And when I stood under those ballroom lights, accepting that Lifetime Achievement Award for donating millions to education, her smirk froze. Tyler, my son, was speechless. The truth had detonated quietly, elegantly, like a bomb made of grace and numbers. But this story wasn't over, not even close. Because the real fallout began in a glass-walled conference room 3 days later, with Amanda, her parents, 2 lawyers, my son, and me. The meeting had been called urgent. Amanda's father, Richard Johnson, had pulled every string he could to arrange it. He was used to being the most powerful person in any room, but today, even his cufflinks looked nervous. Amanda had been pacing for 10 minutes before anyone said a word, her perfect manicure tapping against the leather folder that held the prenup she'd once signed without a second thought. When she finally sat, she didn't look at me. Her lawyer, Harrison Mitchell, cleared his throat. "Let's cut through the dramatics," he said, voice tight. "We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here." Across from him, my attorney, Patricia Wong, placed a thick folder on the table with the kind of quiet confidence only the truly powerful possess. Patricia wasn't just any lawyer. She was a name partner at one of Manhattan's top firms, and her retainer fee alone was more than Amanda's annual spa budget. She flipped open the folder, revealing pages of neatly tabbed documents. The prenuptial agreement, she began smoothly, contains what we refer to as a character clause. It's a protection mechanism for family assets, designed to ensure that individuals who demonstrate persistent contempt for parental sacrifice or family devotion forfeit rights to marital assets. Amanda blinked, visibly thrown. "That's incredibly vague," she snapped. "Actually," I said, leaning forward slightly, "it's quite specific." The air in the room shifted. You could almost hear the hum of tension as Amanda's father frowned. "Define contempt," he said, his voice steady but cautious. Patricia didn't even glance up. "In this case, contempt refers to sustained verbal or behavioral disregard for a parent's contributions, financial or otherwise, based on perceived economic or social inferiority." Amanda's mother looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Amanda tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. "You can't seriously be saying that because I made a few comments I lose everything?" Patricia smiled politely. "We're not saying anything yet, but your comments are well documented, recorded, witnessed, and corroborated at multiple events." Richard Johnson's head snapped toward his daughter. "Recorded?" Amanda froze. "What do you mean recorded?" Patricia folded her hands. "The Educators' Excellence Awards, the engagement party at Westchester, and the venue walkthrough, public events. multiple attendees. Several of your remarks were captured on video and social media by guests. They're time-stamped and verifiable. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Amanda's lawyer tried to recover. Even if that were true, he said quickly, the clause can't possibly hold up. You can't quantify contempt. Patricia turned to me. Daniel? I nodded. You're right, I said softly. You can't quantify contempt, but you can prove intention. Amanda finally looked up, her voice shaking. What intention? The intention, I said, to erase me from my son's life, to isolate him from his own father, to turn him against the very values that built the foundation of everything he has and everything he'll inherit. Tyler's head was down, his hands clasped tightly. The weight of realization was starting to crush him. Amanda scoffed, trying to reclaim her composure. This is insane. You can't seriously be using family devotion as a legal weapon. Patricia's eyes were ice cold. You'd be surprised what holds up in court when there's evidence of emotional manipulation, verbal humiliation, and intent to defame a spouse's family reputation. Richard Johnson pinched the bridge of his nose. Amanda, for God's sake, what did you say? Amanda's lip trembled. It wasn't that bad. She mocked me, I said simply, at her engagement party. Called me a failure, said I found my level as a teacher, and said my son would never have to settle for mediocrity like I did. Amanda's mother winced. Patricia reached into her folder and pulled out a glossy printed transcript. We have verbatim excerpts, she said calmly, verified by 3 witnesses. Amanda's eyes widened as she read the words in black and white, her own words, weaponized by her arrogance. Richard sat back, exhaling slowly. My God, Amanda, what have you done? Her voice broke. It was just a speech. Everyone was drinking. I didn't mean... Intent isn't measured by sobriety, Patricia interrupted. It's measured by consistency, and your behavior has been consistent. Amanda looked at Tyler, desperate. Tell them. You know I didn't mean it that way. Tyler's eyes met mine before flicking back to her. Amanda, he said quietly, you didn't just insult my dad. You built an entire story where he was the villain, and you made me believe it. She stared at him, stunned. Tyler, he shook his head. I let you talk about him like he was some burden, like he wasn't the man who raised me alone, gave up everything, and somehow still managed to create something incredible. You made me ashamed of the one person I should have been proudest of. Tears welled in Amanda's eyes, but there was no sympathy left in the room. Patricia closed her folder. Per the terms of the prenup, Mrs. Johnson-Williams, your actions constitute a breach of the character clause. That means you forfeit all claim to shared marital assets, including any future inheritance derived from Mr. Williams's estate. Amanda's head snapped up. Wait, you can't. That's insane. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but Patricia cut him off. We can, and we will. The documentation is airtight. Amanda's breathing quickened. You planned this, she whispered, eyes narrowing. From the beginning, you set me up. I met her gaze, calm and unflinching. No, Amanda, you set yourself up. I just gave you the rope. You decided how to use it. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. Not angry, not indignant. Afraid. Her father turned to me, his tone measured but cold. Daniel, surely there's a way to handle this privately. There is, I said, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Privately, respectfully, without the public spectacle your daughter seems so comfortable making. Amanda's mother reached across the table, tears in her eyes. Please, she made a mistake. She was proud, arrogant, but she's young. I nodded slowly. I understand. We all make mistakes, but pride isn't an accident. It's a habit, and in my family, habits have consequences. For a long time, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the soft tick of the wall clock. Then Patricia slid one last document across the table. This, she said, is an amendment proposal. It allows Mrs. Gleich Johnson-Williams to retain personal assets she brought into the marriage, provided she agrees to a full separation and waives any claim to Daniel Williams's estate or associated trusts. Amanda's lawyer picked it up, scanned it, and sighed. It's fair, he murmured. Amanda looked at him in disbelief. Fair! Fair! Her voice cracked, echoing through the quiet office. I married into this family. I stood by Tyler. Until it wasn't convenient, I interrupted softly. Until the image cracked. Tyler's voice was barely above a whisper. Amanda, maybe we need time apart. That was the breaking point. Amanda stood, her chair scraping violently against the floor. Her father tried to stop her, but she yanked her arm free. You think you've won? She hissed at me. You think this makes you some kind of hero? I didn't answer. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the truth she'd been hiding behind the designer armor. Fear, panic, the realization that the game she'd been playing wasn't hers to win. When she stormed out of the office, the silence that followed was deafening. Tyler sat motionless, staring at the empty doorway where his wife had just vanished. Then he turned to me, eyes full of questions he wasn't ready to ask. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Some lessons, I said quietly, are more expensive than others. Patricia began packing her folders. We'll handle the rest, she said professionally. But Daniel, when you have a moment, we should discuss establishing that scholarship foundation. The $500,000 endowment for children of single parents? The one you mentioned? Amanda's mother looked up sharply. $500,000? I smiled faintly. Every year, I said, starting this fall. And for the first time in that room, someone actually smiled back. Not out of greed or calculation, but genuine respect. Because while Amanda was busy chasing the illusion of wealth, I'd been building something she could never buy. Legacy. But what Amanda didn't know, not yet, was that this story wasn't over. Not by a long shot, because there's one final clause, one she never even noticed buried in the fine print. And when she discovers what it really means, everything she thought she lost might just turn out to be the least of her worries. There are moments in life when arrogance meets truth and collapses. When the person who thought they were standing on gold suddenly realizes they've been standing on someone else's grace the entire time. And when that moment happens, it doesn't whisper. It hits like thunder. 3 days after the Educators' Excellence Awards, the night that exposed everything Amanda believed about wealth, power, and legacy, the echoes of that thunder still hadn't faded. She'd spent 72 hours spinning, scrambling, making calls, demanding answers, trying to understand how the man she mocked in public had just been revealed as a multimillionaire philanthropist. But now she was about to face the real reckoning. The emergency meeting was held in a glass-walled Manhattan law office, expensive, sterile, and cold. Amanda sat at the polished table between her parents, clutching her designer handbag like it could save her. Across from her sat Daniel Williams, the man she'd humiliated, and his attorney, Patricia Wong, a name that carried weight in every elite legal circle in New York. The tension was palpable. No one spoke until Patricia placed a thick folder on the table and broke the silence. "Let's make this simple," she said. "We're here to clarify the consequences of the character clause in the Williams family prenuptial agreement." Amanda's lawyer, a middle-aged man named Harrison Mitchell, tried to keep his tone steady. "Before we begin, we'd like to discuss the specifics of that clause, what it covers and what it doesn't." Patricia didn't even look up. "It's all quite clear. The clause protects family assets from anyone who demonstrates persistent contempt for family values, parental sacrifice, or economic humility." Amanda tried to smile, but her voice cracked. "That's incredibly vague." Daniel leaned forward. His voice was calm, too calm. "Actually, Amanda, it's very specific. It was written for situations exactly like this one." Patricia opened the folder and slid a USB drive across the table. "We have video evidence from the Westchester Country Club engagement party," she said. "Security footage confirms Mrs. Williams publicly ridiculed her father-in-law's career, financial status, and life choices. Her words, 'He's found his level, settling for mediocrity,' are quite clear." Amanda's face drained of color. That was taken out of context. Patricia didn't even blink. "We also have 12 witness statements describing your tone as deliberately cruel and humiliating, and further documentation, emails, text messages, recorded comments, showing you referred to Mr. Williams as broke, embarrassing, and even suggested he be placed in assisted living." The silence was brutal. Tyler sat still, staring down at his hands. He'd never heard it laid out like this before, the full list of his wife's offenses in cold, legal language. Finally, Amanda whispered, "This is insane. You can't take everything from me over one speech." Her lawyer leaned forward, his pen trembling slightly. "What are the financial implications of this clause?" Patricia folded her hands. "Upon activation, Mrs. Williams forfeits all rights to any marital property derived from the Williams Family Trust or its growth. In simple terms, she walks away with nothing." Amanda's father, Richard, cleared his throat. "Nothing? Surely there's room for interpretation. No, Daniel said quietly. There isn't. Patricia elaborated, her tone clinical. All investments are held in a protective trust designed for generational preservation. If the clause is triggered, those assets remain locked to anyone outside the bloodline. Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. But the 31 million isn't yours, Patricia interrupted smoothly. It was never yours, and now it will never be. Amanda looked at Tyler, desperate. Say something. Tyler, please. But Tyler didn't. For the first time, he truly saw his wife, not the polished surface, but the hollow beneath. Patricia reached into her briefcase again and slid another paper across the table. Mr. Williams has prepared a settlement offer. Amanda blinked rapidly. Settlement? Harrison read it aloud, his voice catching halfway through. It says, you may remain married to Tyler, but you waive all claims to family trust assets. In exchange, Mr. Williams will provide a one-time fund of $500,000, a gift, no strings attached. Amanda's mouth fell open. $500,000? That's more money than you've ever earned on your own, Daniel said evenly. Consider it a lesson in the value of work. Tyler's eyes glistened. Amanda, my father sacrificed everything for me. His pride, his career, his comfort. You mocked that. You mocked him. Amanda's mother finally spoke, her voice shaking. Amanda, maybe you should take this offer. Patricia turned to her. It's the only offer there will be. Amanda's father looked at the document, realization creeping into his expression. The weight of what his daughter had destroyed was dawning on him. I need time to think, Amanda said softly. You have 24 hours, Patricia replied, snapping the folder shut. After that, the clause activates automatically, and you leave with nothing. When they left the office, Tyler walked silently beside his father. In the garage, Daniel's modest Honda sat beside Amanda's gleaming BMW, a visual metaphor for everything that had just unfolded. Dad, Tyler said quietly, I want you to know something. Even if you never had a dime, I'm proud of who you are. Daniel smiled. I didn't choose you over success, son. I chose you as my success. That night, Amanda called. She said she was staying with her parents, that she needed time to process. But Daniel knew what that meant. Some people, when forced to choose between love and money, will always chase the one that disappears first. The next afternoon, she returned to the law office, sunglasses hiding swollen eyes. She signed the settlement at 4:47 p.m., collected her $500,000 check, and walked out without looking back. And then, everything exploded. The video from the Educators Awards had gone viral. Clips of Daniel's speech, his calm, eloquent dismantling of everything Amanda stood for, spread across social media like wildfire. #teacher millionaire trended for days. Headlines read, humble teacher secretly worth $31 million. Former students shared memories. He was the one who paid for my textbooks. He stayed after school to help me get into college. Amanda's world was collapsing in real time. Her friends, the same trust fund crowd who'd once praised her, began sharing the viral video. Some posted sarcastic captions like, when you insult a millionaire because you think he's poor. Tyler called that evening, his voice tight. Dad, Amanda's losing it. Reporters won't stop calling. Her friends are posting everything. She's humiliated. Daniel sighed. That's not humiliation, son. That's consequence. By Thursday, even Forbes wanted in. Mr. Williams, a reporter said, we're running a story on unconventional wealth building. Would you grant us an interview? Daniel declined. But the leak spread anyway. Now everyone knew. The humble teacher was an investor who'd quietly outperformed Wall Street itself. Amanda's parents were mortified. The upcoming wedding, once a display of prestige, had become a public embarrassment. They postponed it indefinitely. Amanda told Tyler, I just need time. I can't face people right now. Tyler's reply was simple. What people, Amanda? The ones who laughed with you when you mocked my father, or the ones laughing at you now? But the most important change wasn't happening online. It was happening inside Tyler. He'd spent 23 years seeing his father through Amanda's eyes, as small, unambitious, content with mediocrity. But now he saw the truth. Saturday morning, he showed up at Daniel's townhouse with coffee and bagels. I keep replaying everything, he said quietly. When you helped me apply for scholarships, I thought it was because we couldn't afford better schools. But you could have paid for anything, couldn't you? Daniel smiled faintly. Would it have mattered? Would it have made you work harder? Tyler thought about that. Probably not. I would have just taken it for granted. That's why I didn't, Daniel said. Real strength isn't built on safety nets, it's built on struggle. Tyler nodded slowly. Amanda never struggled, her parents gave her everything, and because of that, nothing had meaning. That's the curse of easy wealth, Daniel said. You think it's freedom, but it's really a prison with velvet walls. A moment passed before Tyler asked the question he'd been holding in. Dad, did you plan this? The awards, the prenup, everything? Daniel leaned back, eyes calm. I planned to protect what mattered. The rest, Amanda's choices, her downfall, that was all her. Tyler's voice was soft. You knew she'd fail that test. No, Daniel replied. I hoped she wouldn't. Months passed. The divorce finalized quietly. Amanda disappeared to Los Angeles with her $500,000 settlement and a single Instagram caption, New Beginnings. No ring, no mention of Tyler, just another curated illusion. Meanwhile, Tyler was changing. He'd started devouring investment books, studying the markets and learning compound interest from the man who'd mastered it. But it wasn't greed driving him now, it was purpose. I've been thinking about teaching, he said one evening. Daniel looked up. Teaching what? Financial literacy. For people like me, people who think wealth is about cars and clothes instead of discipline and patience. Daniel smiled. Then it's time you had your own legacy. He slid a document across the table. A new trust, this one bearing Tyler's name. The Williams Foundation for Financial Education. You'll run it. You'll teach what others never learned. Tyler's voice trembled. Are you serious? Completely, Daniel said. You'll earn a real salary, build real wealth. But more importantly, you'll help others see that money is a tool, not an identity. 3 months later, they hosted their first workshop inside the same Roosevelt High School classroom where Daniel once taught history. 25 students sat in folding chairs as Tyler explained compound interest, investment strategy, and the quiet power of long-term vision. When a young woman asked, "What's the most important thing your father taught you about money?" Tyler smiled. That real wealth doesn't shout, it whispers. It grows while you're focused on what matters: family, character, integrity. He paused, looking at Daniel in the back of the room, and that the best investment you'll ever make is in people who will remember your kindness long after they've forgotten your balance sheet. The class went quiet. Some took notes, others just stared, realizing maybe for the first time what true success actually looks like. But as the applause faded and the lights dimmed in that little classroom, Daniel looked out the window toward a horizon that was far from finished. Because somewhere out there in Los Angeles, Amanda Johnson was rebuilding her image. $500,000 in her account, a new circle of friends, and a familiar hunger in her eyes. And Daniel knew. This story wasn't over yet.